I have made another mistake. Let's start with this.
Good evening, Goldbreds and Spooky Heads.
I thought I had more time. But good evening, everybody. First of all, congratulations, Nugget, or Nuggy. Brian and Lunity for first, second, and third, respectfully. Hello, Nuggy. Hello, Brian. Hello, Lunity. How's everybody doing today? Happy Saturday and or Sunday, depending what time it is. I spent about 2 to 3 hours yesterday looking for spooky stories, and I just wasn't having any real luck with it. I found one because for some reason I hadn't read The Monkey's Paw before. And I was like, well, I'm definitely jumping on that. But then everything else that I kind of looked at, like I wanted to find those like older stories, and like all the synopsis that I read were kind of like eh. And then I wanted to read a couple of other ones, but they were really long, and I'm like, I don't got the energy for that. So I'm just in kind of like a situation at the moment. Or we've only got one story, but to make up for it, we're gonna murder some more of the creatures from Pray for the Gods later. That's gonna be my padding out the stream idea. It's very smart, very demure, very thoughtful. You're welcome, everyone. Alright. I'm also sipping on tea because I am exceptionally tired. What's wrong, Lunity? Hold on, wait. Sleepy Bread, say thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Oh, thanks, Sleepy Breads. That's so nice of you. I don't know what the problem is here, Lunity. I don't think I've done anything wrong. Lunity, come back. Lunity, I'm sorry. I'm a sad vampire ghost now. Oh, she's back.
Cola, Pepsi Cola?
I'm very, very tired. I had D&D earlier today with the group. It was very fun. I tried to do other things. It did not work. I ended up just laying down for half an hour. Because sometimes, sometimes you feel that fatigue and you're just like, I just need that 30-minute just, I don't care if I fall asleep. I just need to not be actively conscious. And that's where we went. We went into passive consciousness. Sorry, I'm just rambling while I finish this piece of chocolate. I was beyond exhausted yesterday. I feel that. I'm running on 3 hours right now. I'm very, very, very tired. We're just this time of the day where you're just like gonna lay down, floof the world. I agree. And hello, Haya. Hi, are you excited for the spooky story reading? It's The Monkey's Paw. It's the only one I could find that I could feasibly read. So, I sadly couldn't read, or I sadly didn't have time to write my own, which I was a little bit sad about because I've been reading House of Leaves and it kind of sparked some ideas. But I'm like, I don't have time to like quickly like, I know this is a drawing term, but I don't have time to sketch out that written idea very quickly. Went out this afternoon after the folks got home. They're going out again in the next 20 minutes or so. Nice, Brian. I hope that you had a good time this afternoon. Brian, are you also getting hit by like unseasonable warmth right now? Is anybody else getting hit by unseasonable warmth? Because Good God. It is so warm for just no reason. It is like, it is the middle, it is almost late October. Why is it like 20 Celsius outside? Where is my curl up in a blanket and sit by the open window / door weather? What is this Bologna? Like, just why? Why is it so warm? Why is it... Ugh. It's only about 70. I need to do a calculation. One moment, Brian. Celsius to Fahrenheit. What is 70? Yeah, it's 70! It's 70! Why is it 70 outside? It should be like 60. Maybe like 57. Wait, what is 60? Just so I'm clear. Yeah, it should be like 60. Out here, we have sharp temperature drop this week. Would you say that it's out here in the fields? I don't know the rest of the lyrics. Something, 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 teenage wasteland. It's 75. Oh, that sounds awful. Yeah, like I said, I'm sitting at about 70-ish right now, and I'm like... Can't a man just walk around his apartment in his PJ pants without just sweating? This is unreasonable. Oh my god. Okay, so just real quick ramble. So, you sweat at 70? Dude, I sweat at... Hold on. Dude, I start sweating around like 65, 66. Hold on, what is 66? Yeah, hold on. Hold on. Yeah, about a little bit above 66 is when I start being like, ugh. It's cool because I have my windows down. If I have my windows down, it's going to get warm in here. Avatar? Okay, remember, I was born in the Netherlands, where, like, we have cool summers and warm winters. We have a relatively consistent temperature, all things considered. They're pretty up and down. I mean, now with like the really weird temperatures that we've had because of climate change, you know, that's different. But back when I was young, we had dreary summers with rain, and we had slightly cold winters, and it was lovely. I like being that way. Seriously, if we have days like some of the autumn days that we've had recently, where we're sitting at like 53, and it's overcast and it's kind of windy, and I'm outside in like a light hoodie, or like, yeah, in like a hoodie and a t-shirt and pants, I get genuinely homesick for the Netherlands. And hello, Jam Jam, how are you? Yeah, the 70 is ideal for me. No, make it cooler. 65, take it or leave it. Just joking, only take it. Yeah, if the temperature would stay at like 75 forever, I'd be fine. You're both crazy. 56 is my ideal. See, Miner gets it. Hello, Miner, by the way. How are you? I'm okay. Shiny hunting in Beast Ball. So wait. So there are shinies in Beastie Ball. Oh dear. Is it Miner or Minerva? Oh no. Oh, that's changing my attitudes, Avatar. Now I don't know what to do. I'm good procrastinating on homework. Oh no! But that's what I'm kind of doing right now with the monkey's paw, where I'm like, I want to talk about things. I'm used to somewhat warmer weather since I'm south of you. Unacceptable, Brian. All temperatures should be the same. I should be able to travel from Canada to the Caribbean, and both of them should be sitting between 50 and 60 degrees. Okay, Minerva. I will fix that. I'm sorry, Minerva. Unless I'm saying it wrong again. Dyslexia is a butt. It's very, very, yeah. Today, when I was doing my D&D session, we were being introduced to a bunch of NPCs, and, like, every time it's like, can you spell that for me, please? And then we met this person. Can you spell that for me, please? And we're going to this location. Can you spell that for me, please? It's just every time. Short I, like in Mini. Minerva? Or Minerva? There is no hope here. Jam, I just need to point out that that you decided to use a word that has 2 I's in it and said the I. Sound it out doesn't work, Nuggy. That's not how dyslexia works. Maybe like minute. Okay, so it is meh. Minerva. Think of the character Minerva McGonagall. I didn't even realize that her first name was Minerva. This is a brand new thing. No, you're fine, Nuggy. Just explaining, like... dead. You murdered me. Aerophants, how are you? How was your art stream? Aerophants, you can't just be rating me like this. You can't just be doing that to me. And Hashashan, hello, thank you so much for stopping by. Hello, Aerophants, how are you? Thank you so much for stopping by. Well, unfortunately, that's the closest I can get to explaining pronunciation. Look, I appreciate it, but don't think that you didn't just murder me with words. I'm making Halloween costumes. Nice! As you can see, I have donned my Halloween attire as well. I am a vampire ghost or something. And Exia, how are you? Thank you so much for stopping by as well. And Juju's here too! Oh my god, all the friends. They could have wordened you with words.
Welcome.
Wow. And Exia, thank you so much for the follow. That's super appreciated. Oh. Don't worry about it. I had a professor who called me worse names for half a semester, but I actively strive to defeat my dyslexia, but sometimes I just say the name, and if nobody corrects me, it's just like, I'm gonna take this as it's okay because I'm not getting pushback, because I'm really used to getting pushback, where it's like, no, it's this, and it's just like, okay. Nosferatu, oh my god, that's really good. That's really good. Ugh, we're doing it because it's both a bad joke and also good. So for context, for those who aren't aware, the regular ooze is when people make bad jokes in chat because that's their reward. It's terrible. I'm actually essentially Pavlovianing people to keep telling me bad jokes, which is awful. But if I ever get murdered by words, then we use this one just for context. So right now, I've only had to do that once in the last week because you mean good jokes. We'll agree to disagree on that one, methinks. But also, Aerophant, because I'm trying to use this more.
Cola. Pepsi Cola?
If you need to go take care of yourself post-stream, please by all means do so. It is, what is Cobalt's thing again? If you need to do the Quadra S, the snack, sip, sleep, other S. Will, how are the daily walks going? Actually, Juju, it has been notable and not... Thank you, Cobalt. There you go. It's snack, sip, stretch, sleep. I'm gonna walk and feed my dog and myself. These are good options. So I smell you later. How dare you? I don't... Wait. I don't even stink. I'm not gonna sniff the other one just out of pure paranoia. For my sanity's sakes, I reject reality and substitute my tone every time you hit me with that sound. It's because I owned you. I am unownable, alright? You see this neck? This powerful, powerful neck? It is unshackleable. You cannot collar this hound. I am untamable. Grrr! I might be cringe, but at least I'm free.
How embarrassing.
I clicked the wrong one. I wanted to type this one.
Assuming direct control.
There we go. Brat moment. Not brat moment. I am establishing myself right now as a Dom, therefore cannot be controlled because Dom. Actually, okay, Jam Jam, you might actually know this. And I'm sorry that I'm pointing you out right now, but of all the people, you would probably know this. Is there such thing as a bratty Dom? Not dumb, Dom. Dominant. Sure, I'll say dominant because apparently the subtitles do not like Dom. Also, stinky note. It is completely reasonable that I have a stinky note right now. Also, I feel like, yeah, I was about to say I was a little short there for some reason. Is Will justifying that it can't be tamed right now? I can't be tamed. Mostly because I'm too stubborn to be. Dominic. More like Dom this dick. I'm gonna play this because I think I killed myself just now. Bye everybody, I'm gonna go die. I need a slapping emoji. I mean, it's yes. Avatar, is this gonna be the same as what happened with Luna D, where Luna D is like, I need a leaving emoji, and now you're gonna be like, I need a slapping emote? Sounds like Will is taking some words to this flavors a bit too literally. And if I'm saying that, I mean, to be fair, Brian, I'm just working on stuff. I'm just dealing, you know? I'm wheeling and dealing, but not in a way that could get me arrested. Speaking of which, also this is exactly why this is an 18+ stream, because just these random topics came up. So, because I have the D&D game on Wednesday, the live stream, my brain does what it always does when I'm thinking about Dungeons & Dragons when it comes to DMing, and I go into full analysis paralysis overthink mode, so I lose sleep that way. So last night I was laying there and my brain was just like, yeah, but what about this, 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 etc. So like, I'm like, I have freaking Dungeons & Dragons in like 4 hours, you know? Like I really need to fix this. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? I don't want to use like a sleep aid, like a medication, because that's gonna screw me over. And I'm like, I can get high. That sometimes helps. So I went outside, I had a quick puff, I came back in, I got the buzz, I laid down, and I was like, hell yeah, this is gonna let me sleep. The problem was my brain was still coming up with ideas, but my memory was so bad that as soon as I started fleshing out the idea would disappear, and then I'd be sitting there like, damn it, what was that idea again? So it didn't help whatsoever. Oh no, I'm a comic genius and Will is not ownable. These are both terrifying clips that I'm going to now click on and see what they say. The first one is... Oh wait, I need to unmute this. Thank you, Cobalt, for keeping the... I clicked the wrong one in there. Thank you, Cobalt. You bum. And what's this other one? Both of you kept the I clicked the wrong in there. You're awful. You're awful. And Will is not unownable. What do you mean? How dare you? I am so unownable. Look at me. First of all, I'm incorporeal. That makes me already unownable to some degree. So, meh. Only because it wouldn't let me cut off between how embarrassing and I clicked on the wrong one without cutting off the how embarrassing. That's fair. That is one of those weird problems that you really need to like shimmy through the timeline. Be like, okay, either right there or right there. It could be finicky. Clipping is an art. And yeah, Nuggy, enjoy the concert. Go enjoy the concert. Don't be in here. I'm not doing cool music. I'm just mumbling. Muttering and mumbling and talking about trying to turn off my brain, but accidentally just giving myself memory loss. Yep. The audio signal is just too close. The audio Ignis signal is just too close. Ignis, I know you're there. Don't you hide. I don't know if she's actually there, but I mean, I could potentially startle somebody a little bit if I managed to get that correctly. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point, and I need to go. You started saying it before the embarrassing. No way to splice it, unfortunately. Down with the audio Cygnus. Oh no, it's Dorn, legendary voice actor. Hi, Dorn. Congratulations on your first credited voice acting. Proud of you, dude. I'm really glad that it happened for you. That's awesome. I'm like, I genuinely, when I saw it, I was like, oh, snap. X-Skin? Wait, why is Juju saying that you're not allowed to chat? Juju, what are you saying to people? Also, yeah, Juju, just to finish my thought, because I didn't finish it earlier. I have been actually walking a fair bit recently. Not for particularly awesome reasons, but I have been walking a fair bit. The other day, I did like almost 400% steps that I normally try to do per day because, because I just got, I just had to keep leaving the apartment and walking places. That's the BF, and I'm gatekeeping you. Unacceptable. I was about to say, gaslight, gatekeeper, and girl boss, all of it. Your model at least looks like it would be a quiet, ownable person. No. No such thing. Ownable person. Oh, Dorn, you missed my cringe take about how I'm what Jam just posted. I am unownable. I'm so Juju out here being like, no, I will not be repressed. I will not be oppressed. I am Juju, hear me roar. Bravo. Amen. We stan a queen. Neck riggable. Person ownable. Called it a brat moment. Wait, Jam, did you answer the question? I don't remember if the question was answered and if I just lost it. Hold on, let me scan here a little bit. No, I was busy. Dang it. Okay, so can there be bratty doms? There's my question to you. I've written this on a piece of paper. I am sliding that paper over to you. I'm going to just push that on over. You know, I'm going to need you to write there. You're going to have to have your own pen, though. I'm not letting you borrow my pen. So, slide that on over. Brat is sub by nature. The problem is, though, is that there are, like, bratty doms, you know? Or bratty in, like, the non... Well, kind of not and kind of yes. Bratty dom is gone. But darn... I don't know. I've had an argument with somebody before about it, where it's like brat feels incorrect, but it feels correct. Like I don't know how to choose that other point, because like how to say, just wanted to say I am neither dom nor bratty. That is okay, Juju. You don't have to identify as anything. This is me just doing the dumb thing where I'm like, well, what would be the term for this? The thing about brat is that it's about being cheeky with the dom. It's a flavor of power bottom. Yeah. Or somebody who enjoys pushing boundaries to be put into a state of submission, depending on what type of brat you're thinking of. But I'm like, well, there has to, maybe it's not bratty, maybe it's like teasing, or like there's got to be a word for it while still being a dom. Well, it would be like teasing. Humiliating comes to mind, but that's not the correct word. Like, if you're pushing boundaries in a fun way, I like pushing boundaries in a fun way, never directly. I see. Inflammatory. An inflammatory dom. Oh, I just started dating this new person. Just like, oh, what are they like? Oh, they're an inflammatory dom. Oh, what's that like? Yeah. It's kind of hot, but well, you're just talking about a daddy. The only term that I know, or the only explanation for daddy that I know, is just, you know, the daddy chill. And the just like, how to say it, the act of calling one's partner daddy. But I don't really know how to say, like, the definition of it, if there is a definition. Because that's when it starts getting complicated too, right? Like what Lunity was saying earlier about like semantics in wording, where it starts to get complicated. Daddy comes in all flavors, though. That makes it even more complicated. Ugh. Gross. But with just like a hint of so I'm gonna come back later. I'm sorry, Juju. The conversation will be done soon, I promise. I'm stuck in this. When I'm tired, I'm stuck in this. See? Brian understands what I'm talking about. Then I had to act like it was intended. Oh, I see. Where you're just like, no, meant to do it. Stuck the landing. Falling with style, if you will. I'm not upset, Jim. Jim, the sentence almost isekai'd me is all. Avatar just doing that. I think I've seen this gif before. The person who's like sits in their chair and all of a sudden they just like roll back and just like arms straight up and they just slide out of their chair, you know? They're just like dead. 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 Anyway, I apologize for this conversation. It's just, yeah. When I'm tired, hyper-focus on single topics becomes worse. I am so looking forward to when I finally get my stupid meeting with my doctor where I can be like, hey, can we stop giving me anti-anxiety meds and start giving me, like, actual ADHD meds? That'd be really sweet, dude. That'd be real cool. Be really down for that part in the burp. All right. I fully support Jam and their degeneracy. Avatar time searing's out for however many for seconds equal to however many letters he just spoke. Medications, as opposed to metachlorians. Get got, nerd. 30 was close enough. I counted. Okay, well, I don't know how to do that. No, you're okay. That's why I said Avatar. Unless I said mods. Unless I said Avatar. Unless I said mods. Oh, I see. You do that, I'll bring him back. Oh, I see. No, I got it. I got it, Lunity. I'm sorry. I missed a very crucial sentence. Like a very, very crucial sentence. Sentence. What is sentence? Ugh, what is that? How do you say sentence like that, Will? Can you hear a car rumbling in the distance? Just know that that's for vengeance. Well, joke's on you. I've developed a new superpower where I can just magically teleport spark plugs to my hand, turning off vehicles immediately because they no longer have a spark plug. Reverse Uno card at you, Jam. Also, there have been rumbling cars passing all day because it's the weekend. Oh, well, I see. I feel like it's been more than 30 seconds, so it's true. Not if Jam's car is diesel. Well, then I'm going to develop a new superpower where I can teleport diesel spark plugs into my hand. There's a joke there. I'm not doing it. Jam will do it for me, I'm sure. There it is. I'm not even hitting the button. You're not getting that button. You're not getting it. I'm gonna do this instead. I'm gonna develop a superpower of being as physically annoying as possible to you, but you already are. Snap. Also, Jam to your previous statement.
Squeeze it.
I realized I didn't put the spoopy music back on. We're sitting here talking about spoopy topics. Not really, but still. Spoopy sound needs to be here. Where it's like... Well, now I've just got Duke Nukem. in my brain. Thank you, Jam Jam. Searing's bet. Well, I have the power to time out or ban him if I wanna. Nuggy, there's no point in crying. Sometimes you just gotta wait in life. That's just how life is. You just gotta deal with it. Just gotta take it in and be like, how it be? You can't ban me from getting you for groceries, but I can just not show up. Reverse Uno. That's called a divorce. I can divorce Syrinx whenever I want. I have the papers Bruh. Okay. Alright, real talk for a second. I'm sorry, we will get to the story at some point, I promise. One time, I think I've told this story before, but one time, Syrinx sent me a meme on Instagram that made me so violently angry that I now, whenever I see that he sent me something, I have to actively process if I have the capacity to be willing to open the message and look. No, it wasn't the emoji avatar, though that hit too. No, it was an Instagram video. I don't send you anything bad anymore. Yeah? What was the last thing you sent? Hold on. Yeah, that's right. We're pausing stream to go see. What was the last thing you sent me? The last thing you sent me was, I think that's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas in Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time. It was fine. My point is not being made right now, but yeah, tell me how that's bad. I'm saying that my point is not being won over right now, but there were others. You have sent others where I'm like, ugh. But that one was still the worst. If you ever send me that ever again, our friendship may be reduced down to acquaintancy. Because my God. It was... I'm re-remembering it. I'm like having fucking Vietnam flashbacks, but with anger instead of the 50,000 yard stare. I don't even recall which one it was that made you that mad. I'm not saying it because then others might be aware of it, and I'm not doing that to me. All right. We're going to start reading our story now because that's the right thing to do. That's where we're at. Enough, how to say, enough not stalling. This was just conversation, which I enjoy. I enjoy talking to you goobers. I still don't know, because I realize now that there's the migration happening from Twitter to Blue Sky. Some of the VTubers that I follow have started putting out their like little like infographics, you know, just like this is what I look like, this is my name, this is a little description of me, this is, you know, like my community name, and I'm like, well, I have bedbreads and sleepyheads, but like I kind of like there's a part of me that wants to just replace that with the Bratty Breads, because I feel like Bratty Breads is fun, but I flip-flop so much on that, and I'm just so like bedbreads and sleepyheads and sometimes even Bratty Breads. Like, it's just so like I can't have like 3 names for my community unless all of those are like hyphenated, you know? So I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Or should I say I'm... No, but I mean the bratty bread specifically, Syrinx. Like, I don't know how to incorporate that, if I should, or if it's just a fun little side thing that we don't have to worry about. I just don't know. I just don't know. I'm tired and I'm overthinking everything. We're all gluten down here. Yeah, no one's free of gluten. Bratty bread is jam bread. No rebuttal. Jam Jam is definitely a brat. Can confirm. Dab. Dab 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 dab. I didn't say dad, I said dab. Dab 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 dab. Oh, I thought it was actually gonna keep up. Boo! Jam Jam, I do believe that that vehicle you were referring to is now outside honking aggressively. I don't know if my microphone picked that up, but all right, no. Here we go. We're gonna read now. We're gonna read. I turned off all of the sound redeem so that I could read. Oh wait, actually I need to check something too. Okay, good, that is already done. Woo! Really? Now we're gonna have the ambulance go by? He's just honking there menacingly. I mean, that's what's happening right now, Brian. I think that was an ambulance going by too. All right, we're gonna hope for the best. We're gonna breathe. We're gonna exit. I apologize for the yawns. The fatigue is catching up with me. All right, so this is a multi-parter story too. I think it's 3 parts. Yeah, it's 3 parts. I don't know if anybody here has read The Monkey's Paw, but if you haven't, I remember enjoying it back when I read it, however long ago that was. So we are gonna grab this, put it right here so that I can read it more easily. Hopefully all of this doesn't distract the frick out of me. It probably will. Let me just move some stuff around so that I'm not being as distracted, because I'm very distractible right now. There we go. I've never actually read it. I will listen while I lurk. Enjoy your working, Avatar. I hope that it goes well. I am very happy that you are still working on things. I wish that I was as cool as you. That laugh was not intended in a mockery sense of you. It is in a disappointment of me. All right, we go here, we go here, we go here. You're cool. How dare you? How dare you say that to my face? All right. I hope that came across. All right, we are going to read The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs. Part 1. Without, the night could be cold and wet, but in a small parlor of Labernon Villa, the blinds were drawn and the fire burned brightly. Father and son were at chess. The former, who possessed ideas about the game involving radical chances, brings his king into such sharp and unnecessary peril that it even provoked comment from the white-haired old lady knitting placidly by the fire. "Hark at the wind," said Mr. said Mr. White, who, having seen a fatal mistake after it was too late, was amiably desirous of preventing his son from seeing it. I'm listening, said the latter, grimly surveying the board as he stretched out a hand. Check. I should hardly think that he's come tonight, said his father, with his hand poised over the board. Mate, replied the son. That's the worst of living so far out, bawled Mr. White, with sudden and unlooked for violence. Of all the beastly, slushy, out the way places to live in, this is the worst. Paths a bog, the roads a torrent. I don't know what people are thinking about. I suppose because only 2 houses on the road are let, they think it doesn't matter. Never mind, dear, said his wife soothingly. Perhaps you'll win the next one. Mr. White looked up sharply, just in time to interrupt a knowing glance between mother and son. The words died away on his lips, and he hid a guilty grin in his thin gray beard. There he is, said Herbert White at the gate. Sorry, there he is, said Herbert White as the gate banged to loudly and heavy footsteps came towards the door. The old man rose and with hospitable haste and opened the door, was heard condoling with the new arrival. The new arrival also condoled with him, so that Miss White said tut-tut and coughed gently as her husband entered the room, followed by a tall, burly man, beady of eye and rubicund of visage. Sergeant Major Morris, he said, introducing himself. The sergeant major took hands and took the proffered seat by the fire, watching contentedly as his host got out whiskey and tumblers and stood a small copper kettle on the fire. At the third glass, his eyes got brighter and he began to talk. The small family circle regarding with eager interest this visitor from distant parts as he squared his broad shoulders in the chair and spoke of wild scenes and doughty deeds, of wars and plagues and strange peoples. 21 years of it, said Mr. White, nodding at his wife and son. When he went away, he was a slip of a youth in the warehouse. Now look at him. He doesn't look to have taken much harm, said Miss White politely. I'd like to go to India myself, said the old man, just to look around a bit, you know. Better where you are, said the sergeant major, shaking his head. He put down the empty glass and sighed softly, shook it again. I should like to see those old temples and... Dang it, difficult words. Those old temples and... fakirs? And jugglers, said the old man. What was that you started telling me the other day about a monkey's paw or something, Morris? Nothing, said the soldier hastily. Leastways, nothing, or lestways, nothing worth hearing. Monkey's paw? Said Miss White, curiously. Well, it's a bit of what you might call magic, perhaps, said the sergeant major offhandedly. His 3 listeners leaned forward eagerly. The visitor absent-mindedly put his empty glass to his lips, then set it back down again. His host filled it for him again. To look at, said the sergeant major, fumbling in his pocket. It's just an ordinary paw, dried to a mummy. He took something out of his pocket and proffered it. Miss White drew back with a grimace, but her son, taking it, examined it curiously. And what is so special about it? Inquired Mr. White, as he took it from his son, and, having inspecting it, placed it upon the table. It has a spell put on it by an old, we're going to just say magician, because I don't know how else to say that word, by an old magician, said the sergeant major. A very holy, yes, that exact word, Lunity. I do not know how to say that word. Or is it fakir? Or fakir? I don't know how to say it. Fakia? Fakia? Fakea? I'm just saying magician. I'm never going to say that correctly. Or vizier, maybe. I'm just going to say magician, because that word is just going to be nope. Yeah, I know, Jam. That's exactly why I'm just saying magician. A very holy man. He wanted to show that fate... Oh, we'll just say priest, actually. It had a spell put on it by an old priest, said the sergeant major. A very holy man. He wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives, and that those who intervened with it do so to their sorrow. He put a spell on it so that 3 separate men could each have 3 wishes of it. His manners were so impressive that his hearers were conscious that his light-hearted laughter had jarred somewhat. Well, why don't you have 3, sir? Said Herbert White, cleverly. The soldier regarded him the way that middle age is wont to regard presumptuous youth. I have, he said quietly, and his blotchy face whitened. And did you really have the 3 wishes granted? Asked Miss White. I did, said the sergeant major, his glass tipped against his strong teeth, or tapped against his strong teeth. And has anyone else wished? Persisted the old woman. The first man had his 3 wishes, yes, was the reply. I don't know what the first 2 were, but the 3rd was for death. That's how I got the paw. His tone was so grave that a hush fell upon the group. If you've had your 3 wishes, it's no good to you now, then, Morris, said the old man at last. What do you keep it for? The soldier shook his head. Fancy, I suppose, he said slowly. I did have some idea of selling it, but I don't think I will. It has caused me enough mischief already. Besides, people won't buy it. They think it's a fairy tale, some of them, and those who do think anything of it want to try it first and pay me afterwards. If you could have another 3 wishes, said the old man, eyeing him keenly, would you have them? I don't know, said the other. I don't know. He took the paw and dangled it between his forefinger and thumb, finally throwing it into the fire. White, with a slight cry, stooped down and snatched it off. Better let it burn, said the soldier solemnly. If you don't want it, Morris, said the other, give it to me. I won't, said his friend doggedly. I threw it into the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happened. Pitch it on the fire like a sensible man. The other shook his head and examined his possession closely. How do you do it? He inquired. Hold it in your right hand and wish aloud, said the sergeant major. But I'm warning you of the consequences. And hello, Ruby. Thank you so much for the hydrate. Sounds like the Arabian Nights, said Miss White as she rose and began to set dinner. Don't think you might wish for 4 pairs of hands for me. Oh, sorry, don't you think you might wish for 4 pairs of hands for me? Her husband drew the talisman from his pocket, all 3 burst into laughter at Sergeant Major, with a look of alarm on his face, caught him by the arm. If you must wish, he said gruffly, wish for something sensible. Mr. White dropped it back in his pocket and, placing chairs, motioned his friend to the table. In the business of supper, the talisman was partly forgotten, and afterwards the 3 sat listening to in an enthralled fashion to a second installation of the soldier's adventures in India. If the tale about the monkey's paw is not more truthful than those he has been telling us, said Herbert as the door closed behind their guest, just in time to catch the last train. We shan't make much of it. Did you give anything for it, Father? Inquired Mrs. White, regarding her husband closely. A trifle, he said, colored slightly. He didn't want it, but I made him take it. He pushed me again to throw it away. Likely, said Herbert with pretended horror. Why, we're going to be rich, famous, and happy. Wish to be an emperor, Father, to begin with. Then you can't be henpecked. He darted around the table, pursued by the misaligned Miss White, armed with an... Why are there always such complicated words in this? Antimacassar? I have no idea what these words are. One moment. Googling. Don't get startled.
Antimacassar.
Oh, it is antimacassar. All right. He darted around the table, pursued by the misaligned Miss White, armed with an antimacassar. Mr. White took the paw from his pocket and eyed it dubiously. I don't know what to wish for, and that's a fact, he said slowly. It seems to me that I've got all I want. If you only cleared the house, you'd be quite happy, wouldn't you? Said Herbert, with his hand on his shoulder. Well, wish for 200 pounds, then. That'll just do. His father, smiling shamefacedly as his own credibility, held up the talisman as his son, with a solemn face, somewhat marred by a wink at his mother, sat down and struck a few impressive chords. I wish for 200 pounds, said the old man distinctly. A fine crash from the piano greeted his words, interrupted by a shuddered cry from the old man. His wife and son ran towards him. It moved, he cried, with a glance of disgust at the object as it lay on the floor. As I wish, it twisted in my hand like a snake. Well, I don't see money, said his son as he picked it up and placed it on the table. And I bet I never shall. It must be your fancy, Father, said his wife, regarding him anxiously. He shook his head. Never mind, though. There's no harm done, but it gave me a shock all the same. They sat down by the fire again, while the 2 men finished their pipes. Outside, the wind was higher than ever, as the old man started nervously at the sound of the door banging upstairs. A silent, A silent, unusual, and depressing settled on all three, which lasted until the old couple rose to retire to rest for the night. I expect you'll see the cash tied up in a big bag in the middle of your bed, said Herbert, as he bid them good night. And something horrid squirming on top of your wardrobe, watching you as you pocket your ill-gotten gains. He sat alone in the darkness, glancing at the dying fire, seeing faces in it. The last was so horrible and so simian that he glanced at it in amazement. It was so vivid that with a little uneasy laugh, he felt on the table for a glass containing a little water to throw over it. His hands grasped the monkey's paw, and with a little shiver, he wiped his hand on his coat. He wiped his hand on his coat and went to bed. Part 2. In the brightness of the wintry sun... Let me check the time. Oh, God, the ads ran through that. I am so sorry to anybody who got hit by ads. I am so sorry. Gosh dang it. I knew I should have been watching. Boo! Sorry, everyone. Part 2. In the brightness of the wintry sun next morning, as it streamed over the breakfast table, he laughed at his fears. There was an air of prosaic wholesomeness about the room which had lacked on the previous night, and the dirty, shriveled little paw was... There you go, Jam Jam. You got your wish. You got the noisy person. And the dirty, shriveled little paw that was perched on the sidebar with a carelessness which betooken no great belief in its virtues. I suppose the old soldiers are the same. I suppose all old soldiers are the same, said Mrs. White. The idea of us listening to such nonsense. How could wishes be granted in these days? And if they could, how could 100 pounds hurt, Father? Might drop on his head from the sky, said Herbert. Morris said the thing happened so naturally. Said the things happened so naturally, said his father, that he that you might, if you have wished, so attribute it to consequence. Well, don't break into money before I come back, said Herbert as he rose from the table. I'm afraid it'll turn you into a mean, avaricious man, and we shall have to disown you. His mother laughed and followed him to the door, watched him down the road, and returning to the breakfast table, was very happy at the expense of her husband's credulity. All of which did not prevent her from scurrying to the door as the postman knocked, not preventing her from referencing somewhat shortly to the retired sergeant majors of Biblious Habits, when she found that the post brought a tailor's bill. Herbert will have some more of his funny remarks, I expect, when he comes home, she said as she sat at dinner. I dare say, said Mr. White, pouring himself some beer. But for now that the thing moved in my hand, that I'll swear to. You thought it did, said the old lady soothingly. I said it did, replied the other. There is no thought about it. I had just... What's the matter? The wife made no response. She was watching the mysterious movements of a man outside, who, peering in an undecided fashion at the house, appeared to be trying to make up his mind to enter. the mental connection with the 200 pounds, she noticed that the stranger was well dressed and worn a silk hat of glossy newness. 3 times he paused at the gate, then walked on again. The 4th time he stood with his hand upon it, and then, with a sudden resolution, flung it open and walked up the path. Miss White, at the same moment, placed her hand behind her and hurriedly unfastened the strings of her apron and put the useful article of apparel beneath the cushion of her chair. She brought the stranger, who seemed ill at ease, into the room. He gazed at her furtively, and listened in a preoccupied fashion as the old lady apologized for the appearance of the room and her husband's coat, a garment which he usually reserved for the garden. She then waited as patiently as her sex would permit for him to broach his business, but he was at first strangely silent. I knew that there would be something like this. Sorry, pardon the chuckle, it just made me laugh. Just like, there it is. I've been looking for that one. I was asked to call, he said at last, and stooped and picked a piece of cotton from his trousers. I'm from Ma and Megan's. The old lady started. Is anything the matter? She asked hastily. Sit down and don't jump to conclusions. You're not bringing us bad news, I'm sure, sir. And eyed the other wistfully. I'm sorry, began the visitor. Is he hurt? Demanded the mother wildly. The visitor bowed in assent. Badly hurt, he said quietly, but he is not in any pain. Oh my goodness, said the old lady, clasping her hands. Thank God for that. She broke off as the sinister meaning of the assurance dawned on her, and she saw the awful confirmation of her fears in the other's averted face. She caught her breath, turned to her slow-witted husband, laid her trembling hand on his. There was a long silence. And hello, Loads, how are you? Or Loads, how are you? Brain is dead. He was caught in the machinery, said the visitor, at length in a low voice. Caught in the machinery, replied Mr. White in a dazed fashion. Yes. He sat staring out the window and taking his wife's hand between his own, pushed it as he had wont to do in their old courting days nearly 40 years before. He was the only one left of us, he said, turning gently to the visitor. It is hard. The other coughed, rising, walked slowly to the window. The firm wishes to convey their sincerest sympathies with you in your great loss, he said, without looking around. I beg that you will understand that I am only a servant and merely obeying orders. There was no reply. The old woman's face was white, her eyes staring, her breath inaudible. On her husband's face was such a look as his friend, the sergeant, might have carried into his first action. I was to say that Ma and Megan's disclaim all responsibility, continued the other. They admit no liability at all, but in consideration of your son's service, they wish to present you with a certain sum of compensation. Mr. White dropped his wife's hand, rose to his feet, glancing with a look of horror at his visitor. His dry lips shaped the words. How much? 200 pounds, was the answer. Unconscious of his wife's shriek, the old man smiled faintly, put out his hands like a sightless man, and dropped a senseless heap to the floor. Love it. Love it. Sorry, that's why this story is so good. All right, part 3. We don't have too much left. We'll be getting this done before, but here we go. Where's the start? Because I scrolled. Part 3. In the new cemetery, some 2 miles distant, the old people buried their dead and came back to the house steeped in shadows and silence. It was all over so quickly that at first they could hardly realize it and remained in a state of expectation as though something else to happen, something else which was to lighten this load too heavy for old hearts to bear. But the days passed, expectation gave way to resignation, the hopeless resignation of the old, sometimes miscalled apathy. Sometimes they hardly exchanged a word, for now they had nothing to talk about. Their days were long to weariness. It was about a week after that. It was about a week after that, the old man, waking suddenly at night, stretched out his hand and found himself alone. The room was in darkness. The sound of subdued weeping came from the window. He rose himself in bed and listened. "Come back," he said tenderly. "You will be cold." "It is colder for my son," said the old woman, and wept afresh. The sound of her sobbing died away in his ears. The bed was warm, and his eyes were heavy with sleep. He dozed fitfully, and then slept until a sudden wild cry from his wife awoke him with a start. "The paw!" she cried, bewildered. "The monkey's paw!" He started up in alarm. Where? Where is it? What's the matter?" She came stumbling across the room towards him. "I want it," she said quietly. You've not destroyed it?" "It's in the parlor, in the bracket," he replied, marveling. "Why?" She cried and laughed together, bending over and kissing his cheek. "I only just thought of it," she said hysterically. "Why didn't I think of it before? Why didn't I think of it?" "Think of what?" he questioned. "The other 2 wishes," she replied rapidly. "We've only had one." Was that not enough? He demanded fiercely. "No," she cried triumphantly. We'll have one more. Go down and get it quickly and wish our boy alive again." The man sat in his bed and flung the bedclothes from his quaking joints. "Good Lord, you are mad!" he cried. "Get it," she panted. "Get it quickly and wish. Oh, my boy, my boy." Her husband struck a match and lit a candle. "Get back to bed," he said unsteadily. "You don't know what you're saying." "We had the first wish granted," said the old woman feverishly. "Why not the second?" "A coincidence," stammered the old man. "Go get it and wish," cried the wife, quivering with excitement. The old man turned and regarded her. His voice shook. "He has been dead 10 days, and besides I would not tell you otherwise, but I could only recognize him by his clothes. If he was too horrible for you to see then, how now?" "Bring him back!" cried the old woman, and dragged him towards the door. "Do you think I fear the child I have nursed?" He went down in the darkness and felt his way to the parlor and then to the mantelpiece. The talisman was in its place, and a horrible fear that the unspoken wish might bring his mutilated son before him ere he could escape from the room seized up in him, and he caught his breath as he found that he had lost the direction of the door. His brow cold with sweat, he felt his way round the table, grasped along the wall, until he found himself in the small passage with the unwholesome thing in his hand. "And thank you for the lurkling." Even his wife's face seemed changed as he entered the room. It was white and expectant. as his face seemed to have, and to his fears seemed to have an unnatural look upon it. He was afraid of her. "Wish!" she cried in a strong voice. "It's foolish and wicked," he faltered. "Wish!" repeated his wife. He raised his hand. "I wish my son was alive again." The talisman fell to the floor, and he regarded it fearfully. Then he sank trembling into a chair as the old woman with burning eyes walked to the window and raised the blinds. He sat until he was chilled to the bone, glancing occasionally at the figure of the old woman peering through the window. The candle end, which had burned low the rim of the china candlestick, was throwing pulsating shadows on the ceiling and walls until, with a flicker larger than the rest, it expired. The old man, with an unspeakable sense of relief at the failure of the talisman, crept back to his bed, and a minute afterwards the old woman came silently and apathetically beside him. Neither spoke, but sat silently listening to the ticking of the clock. The stairs creaked, and a squeaking mouse scurried noisily through the wall. The darkness was oppressive, and after laying for some time, screwing up his courage, he took a box of matches, striking one, and went downstairs for a candle. At the foot of the stairs, the match went out, and he paused to strike another. And at that same moment, a knock came so quiet and stealthily as to be scarcely audible, sounded on the front door. The match fell from his hand, and spilt into the passage. He stood motionless, his breath suspended until the knock was repeated. Then he turned and fled swiftly back to his room, closing the door behind him. A third knock sounded through the house. "What was that?" cried the old woman, starting up. "A rat," said the old man a rat," said the old man in a shaking tone. "A rat. It's passing me on the stairs." His wife sat up in bed. A loud knock resounded through the house. "It's Herbert!" She ran to the door, but her husband was before her, catching her by the arm, holding her tight. "What are you going to do?" he whispered hoarsely. "It's my boy! It's Herbert!" she cried out mechanically. "I forgot it was 2 miles away. What are you holding me for? Let me go. I must open the door." "For God's sakes, don't let it in," cried the old man, trembling. "You're afraid of your own son," she cried, struggling. "Let me go. I'm coming, Herbert. I'm coming." There was another knock, and another. The old woman with a sudden retch broke free and ran from the room. The husband followed to the landing, and calling after her, appealingly as she hurried down the stairs. He heard the chain rattle back and the bolt draw slowly and stiffly from its socket. Then the old woman's voice strained and panted. "The bolt!" she cried out. "Come down! I can't reach it!" Her husband was on his hands and knees, groping wildly on the floor to search for the paw. If only he could find it before the thing outside got in. A perfect fuselage of knocks reverberated through the house, and he heard the scraping of a chair as his wife pulled it down to the passage against the door. He heard the creaking of the bolt as it came slowly back. At that same moment, he found the paw and frantically breathed his last and third wish. His third and last wish. The knock ceased suddenly, although the echoings of it were still in the house. He heard the chair drawing back and the door open. A cold wind rushed up the staircase, and a loud, long wail of disappointment and misery from his wife gave him the courage to run to her side and then to beyond the gate. The street lights flickered opposite shine in a quiet and deserted street. And that was The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs. Oh, love it. I love that story. I'm sorry I butchered it, but I love that story so much. It's so freaking good. There you go. Yeah, Lunady, I think you saw where that was going. It's a very, very good story. It's one of the ones that I regret not having read last year because it's a great freaking story. It's so eerie and like it's old-timey, but it's got such a good feel to it, you know? Just the whole idea that... And it's so just old-timey in general, you know? Like the idea of, you know, the old soldier that returns from, you know, like the Orient, from India, where, you know, like magic still exists. The idea of, you know, how to say, Nuggy, I am going to have to ask you to not give as much of a play-by-play about happening. I know that it's a long wait, and I'm sorry that that's the case, but repeating it is not going to make it go any faster. I love, you know, they come in, and there's that buildup of them being, like, kind of worried about it, but kind of like, haha, it's just a silly little thing, you know, like, never trust an old soldier's message. And then there's the, you know, like the build-up, and then something they do the wish, and there's the build-up of it being like, oh, it moved. You know, like in a lot of other media that uses the monkey's paw, it's when you make the wish, the fingers curl. So that's what I imagine happened, like one of the fingers curled up. And then their son dies because they wish for 200 pounds. And it's all just potentially a coincidence. And then they wish for their son the wife wishes for their son to come back. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen here? You know, nothing happened. And then something does happen. And you're like, oh, this was the original Monkey's Paw story. I believe so, yes, Lunity. I believe the one that I have is the original W.W. Jacobs version of it. I never said WWE. I said W.W. Jacob. Thank you. It's just good. It's just a great story. Sorry, I really like The Monkey's Paw. I think The Monkey's Paw is a great story. As you can tell by my whole, like, being all excited and such. And no, Nuggy, you don't have to shut up. I'm just saying the www.jacobs.gov. I'm saying you don't have to shut up, but I'm just saying repeating the same thing over and over again doesn't help anybody, is what I'm saying. I was imagining that it was you were telling it. Well, I was telling it technically, Ruby, but I wish that I had written it because it's such a good story. I wish that I could write like my own version of The Monkey's Paw. I love the consequentialness of it, right? Like, it does actually make me think of The Simpsons episode with the monkey's paw, where every time they wish for something, something bad happens in return. Oh, I was imagining it. Oh, sorry, Ruby. I misread your message. I'm sorry. I misread it. I missed one letter. I apologize. Oh, sorry. I missed one word. Completely sentence changed. My bad. I'm glad to hear that then. How to say? I'm having a small panic. I can't control my actions sometimes. That is okay, Nuggy. I'm just putting some boundaries down is what I'm saying. You don't gotta worry about it. You're not in trouble or anything. This is just me being like, hey, here's the thing that I'm noticing. I'm just going to address it really quickly. Yeah, like in The Simpsons, they do that shenanigans. There's just this... I think my favorite part from The Simpsons episode is they have one wish left, and all this stuff is going wrong. Like, aliens are attacking Earth because Lisa wished for world peace so the humans don't have any weapons to, like, attack the aliens. And then Homer gets the last wish, and he ends up just wishing for, like, a turkey sandwich. But he wishes, like, super dramatic. He's just like, I don't want any of your nonsense. I don't want to be turned into a turkey. Do you got that, you crazy hand? And then, like, a turkey sandwich appears in front of him. And he takes a bite out of it, and he's like, it's not bad. The turkey's a little dry. The turkey's a little dry! Ah, curse you, demon hand! So naturally, after seeing that episode, I was like, well, I want to read The Monkey's Paw. And then I went out and found it and was just like, this is a great story. I love this. I remember that episode. Heck yeah! Well then, Luna D, how do they fix the alien problem? Pop quiz! Hooah! I'm frisbeeing a pop quiz at you. How do they fix the alien problem? No idea. Ned Flanders picks it up, and he, as soon as he grabs it, all the fingers uncoil, and he wishes, the first thing I'd want to do is to get rid of these aliens. And it starts by showing Mo being chased by an alien, and then when he makes the wish, it's the alien being chased by Mo holding a board with a nail in it. With the alien going, ah, he's got a board with a nail in it! I'm just gonna leave so I don't say anything when my brain is going on autopilot. I do hope that things get better, Nuggy. Like, I don't want you to be in this state. Like, don't think that that's the case. I appreciate that you're distancing so that you don't do it again, but I do hope that things go smoother. I totally get social anxiety. Like, do not think that I don't get that to some extent, because I totally have that as well. I hope that things go smooth for you, and I hope that you enjoy the concert when you get in. But yeah, that's the situation. They fix it by having a board with a nail in it. The humans have defeated us. No, because they will keep on making bigger boards and bigger nails until one day they make a board with a nail so big it will destroy them all. I haven't quoted it perfectly, but the general paraphrasing is there. Anyway, unfortunately, that's the only story that we got, but I'm glad that I found that one again. Because I know that I'm harping on this a lot, but I really, really like The Monkey's Paw. It's good. It's good. I like it. I like it. I love it. I want to put a version of that into a D&D game one day and monkey paw the frick out of it and just ruin my player's life. You read The Most Dangerous Game before. The Most Dangerous Game. I don't think I've heard of it, Jam Jam, so no. Today I watched Beetlejuice for the first time. Ending scene with the shrinked head is hilarious. I don't actually know that in particular, Ruby. I'm sorry. I mean, I've seen Beetlejuice before, or at least the original Beetlejuice. Why do they call them aliens when you... Mom gave me coffee. I feel like caffeine is not something that will help you when it comes to social anxiety. I know that caffeine is not good for my anxiety, but if it's helping, I guess it's helping. When I watched that, God, it's been way too long since I've seen that. Now you're sounding like a ghost. It's true, because I've been defeated by Avatar. Avatar straight elbow dropped me. I walked into the room thinking he was going to come in with the frickin' elbow. No, he was on the ropes and he just came in with the people's elbow, which is just regular elbow, but with more weight behind it. All right, let me look at let me look at this. The Most Dangerous Game. Oh, it's the same website that I was using. Jam Jam, hell yeah. Well, this is going to be a first-time read for me as well, so this could be an adventure. So be prepared for me to fumble, and... Are there going to be difficult names? You have to legally tell me. Nah, not that I recall. All right. Fun fact, wheelchairs are heavy. Wheelchairs are heavy, especially when there's someone in it. The Most Dangerous Game sounds familiar. Features and mysteries. All right. God. I love the art, by the way, Jam, for the Most Dangerous Game movie poster. It's so of its time. Oh. Game like What You Hunt? Or maybe it's like a Rube Goldberg machine. Like it's the most dangerous game. Like you don't know what's gonna happen when you push over that first domino. You don't know what's gonna happen. You could die. Hold on, let's see. Mousetrap, but lethal. Yeah, like think Operation, but you're connected to a car battery. And every time you goof, the car battery gets connected. Or alternatively, you're doing Operation, but if you screw up, someone puts a metal rod over both of the poles of the battery. And just watch as whatever happens, happens. I read it back in middle school and then again in high school for class in both cases. Funnily enough, my middle school teacher was a student of my high school. That's trippy. That's trippy, Jam. Sir, I already read this story before. Oh, really? Who was the teacher? This person. Ah, yes, I remember them. Troublesome little rascal. I was like, I see the influence. They need to make a... He can't keep getting away with this. He can't keep getting away with this. Avatar, you're on thin ice. All right, let me do one thing really quickly and then we will get started. Brother, I'm melting. Brother, you melting. Actually, we're going to take a tiny little break because since I couldn't take the break earlier, I'm going to do that really quickly. I know we're doing that really early, but like, I'm chugging tea. I need to use the bathroom. All right, I will be doing a tiny little break. We're going to just do the 3-minute ads because I don't know how long this story is going to take for me to read, so I'd rather just have the full hour. I think that's the best option. So we're going to take a tiny little break. If you guys can or are able to, I hope that you get up and stretch. Grab yourself something to eat, grab yourself something to drink. Make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves. I'll be back ASAP. BRB. All right, everybody. We're gonna read this story, and I apologize if my inflections are terrible. All right. I'm just doing like a tiny bit of scanning. And hello, Ruby. Oh yeah, I'm gonna pop my fingers. I apologize to the people who don't like that. Oh, there we go. A spoopy note. Balloonity, these are going on YouTube. Which only makes it even spookier for the people involved. Can it replace the stinky? Ooh, I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll even make it just a tiny bit bigger too, just for you. Affirmations. This live is going to help me sleep. I believe in you, Ruby. Please do a heckin' good sleep. We'll see how it goes, though, when it comes to this story. Because we have The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. Nothing like a good horror story. I mean, to be fair, Ruby, I listen to like dark ambience and horror ambience to sleep sometimes. That's like a sleep aid. But then again, I also sometimes listen to like World War I ambience to sleep, so maybe I'm just a little bit screwed up. No further questions. No further questions about the topic. All right. Hold on. So we have... All right. I'm going to start. Shush, everybody. I'm going to start. Let me just make sure that I'm actually in a good position here. There we go. All right. Off there to the right, somewhere, is a large island, said Whitney. It's a rather mysterious... What island is that? Rainsford asked. The old charts call it Ship Trap Island, Whitney responded. A suggestive name, isn't it? Sailors have a curious dread of the place. I don't know why. Some superstitious... I can't see it, remarked Rainford, trying to peer through the dank tropical night that was palpable as it pressed its thick, warm darkness in upon the yacht. You've good eyes, said Whitney with a laugh. I've seen you pick off a moose moving in the brown fall bush at 200 yards, but even you can't see 4 miles or so through a moonless Caribbean night. Nor 4 yards, admitted Rainsford. Ugh, it's like moist black velvet. It will be light enough in Rio, promised Whitner. We should make it in a few days. I hope the Jaguar gun has come from Prudy's. We should have good hunting up the Amazon. Great sport hunting. The best sport in the world, agreed Rainsford. Oh boy, we already got the rich people. Probably the rich British people coming in and murdering animals for funsies. For the hunter, amended Whitney. Not for the Jaguar. Don't talk rot, Whitney, said Rainford. You're a big game hunter, not a philosopher. Who cares how a jaguar feels? Perhaps the jaguar does, observed Whitney. Bah! They've no understanding. Even so, I'd rather think they understand one thing. Fear. fear of pain, and fear of death. Nonsense, laughed Rainsford. This hot weather is making you soft, Whitney. Be a realist. The world is made up of two classes, the hunter and the huntees. Lucky for you, or luckily, you and I are hunters. Do you think we've passed the island yet? I can't tell in the dark. I hope so. Why? Asked Rainford. The place has a reputation. A bad one. Cannibals? Suggested Rainsford. Hardly. Even cannibals can't live in such a godforsaken place. But it's gotten into sailor lore somehow. Didn't you notice that the crew's nerves seem a bit jumpy today? They were a bit strange, now that you mention it. Even Captain Nielsen. Yes, even the tough-minded old Swede who'd go up to the devil himself and ask him for a light. Those fish-blue eyes held a look I never saw there before. All I can get out of him was, this place has an evil name amongst seafaring men, sir. Then he said to me gravely, don't you feel anything? As if the air about us was actually poisonous. Now, I mustn't laugh when I tell you this. I did feel like a sudden chill. There was no breeze. The sea was as flat as a plate glass window. We were drawing near the island then. What I felt was a mind chill, a sort of sudden dread. Pure imagination, said Rainsford. A superstitious sailor can taint the whole ship's company with his fear. Maybe. But sometimes I think sailors have an extra sense that tells them when they are in danger. Sometimes I think... Oh, those were both... Why would they do it that way? Sorry, wait, no. What a weird way to write that. That should have just stayed up there. Hold on. But sometimes I think, maybe, but sometimes I think sailors have an extra sense that can tell them when they are in danger. Sometimes I think evil is a tangible thing with wavelengths, just like sound and light has. An evil place can, as to speak, broadcast vibrations of evil. Anyhow, I'm glad that we're getting out of this zone. Well, I think I'll be turning in now, Rainsford. I'm not sleepy, said Rainsford. I'm going to smoke another pipe on the afterdeck. Good night then, Rainsford. See you for breakfast. Right. Good night, Whitney. There was no sound in the night as Rainsford sat there but the muffled thud of the engine that drove the yacht swiftly through the darkness, and the swish and ripple of the wash of the propeller. Rainsford, reclining in a steamer chair, indolently puffed on his favorite briar. The sensuous dizziness of the night was getting to him. It's so dark, he thought, that I could sleep without closing my eyes. The night would be my eyelids. And hello, Artificer. And have a good night, Brian. Thank you so much for stopping by. An abrupt sound startled him. Off to the right he heard it, and his ears, expert in such matters, could not be mistaken. Again he heard the sound, and again. Somewhere off in the darkness, someone had fired a gun 3 times. Rainsford sprung up and moved quickly to the rail, mystified. He strained his eyes in the direction from which the reports had come, but it was like trying to see through a blanket. He leapt upon the rail and balanced himself there to get a greater elevation. His pipe, striking a rope, was knocked from his mouth. He lunged for it, short, hoarse cry came from his lip as he realized that he has reached too far and had lost his balance. The cry was pitched off short as blood-warm waters of the Caribbean dozed over his head. He struggled up to the surface and tried to cry out, but the wash from the speeding yacht slapped him in the face, and the salt water in his open mouth made him gag and struggle. Desperately, he struck out with strong strokes against the receding lights of the yacht, but he stopped before he had swum 50 feet. A certain cool-headedness had come to him. It was not the first time he had been in a tight spot. There was a chance that his cries could be heard by somebody aboard the yacht, but the chance was slender and growing more slender as the yacht raced on. He rustled himself out of his clothes and shouted with all his power. The lights of the yacht became faint and ever-fading fireflies. Then they were blotted out entirely by the night. Rainsford remembered the shots. They had come from the right, and doggedly he swam in the direction, swimming with slow, deliberate strokes, conserving his strength. For a seemingly endless time, he fought the sea. He began to count his strokes. He could do possibly 100 more, and then Rainsford heard a sound. It came out of the darkness. A high, screaming sound, the sound of an animal in extremity of anguish and terror. He did not recognize the animal that made the sound. He did not try to. With fresh vitality, he swam towards the sound. He heard it again. Then it was cut short by another noise, crisp, staccato. Pistol shot, muttered Rainsford, swimming on. 10 minutes of determined effort brought another sound to his ears, the most welcoming he had ever heard, the muffled and growling of the sea on a rocky shore. He was almost on the rocks before he saw them. In a night less calm, he would have shattered against them. With his remaining strength, he dragged himself from the swirling waters. Jagged crags appeared to jut up in the... And congratulations on the 80, Artificer! Let's go! Jagged crags appeared to jut up in the opaqueness. He forced himself upward, hand over hand. Gasping, his hands raw, he reached the flat place at the top. Dense jungle came down to the edge of the cliffs. What perils that tangle of trees and underbush might hold for him did not concern Rainsford just then. All he knew was that he was safe from his enemy, the sea, and that utter wariness was on him. He flung himself down at the jungle edge and tumbled headlong into the deepest sleep of his life. When he opened his eyes, he knew from the position of the sun that it was late afternoon. Sleep had given him new vigor. A sharp hunger was picking at him. He looked about him, almost cheerfully. Where there are pistol shots, there are men. Where there are men, there's food, he thought. But what kind of men, he wondered, in such a foreboding a place? An unbroken front of sneering and jagged jungle fringed the shore. He saw no sign of a trail through the tightly knit web of weeds and trees. It was easier to go along the shore, and Rainsford floundered along by the water. Not far from where he landed, he stopped. Some wounded thing, by evidence a large animal, had thrashed about in the underbrush. The jungle weeds were crushed down, and the moss was lacerated. One patch of weeds was stained crimson. A small glittering object not far away caught Rainsford's eye, and he picked it up. It was an empty caliber. Or sorry, it was an empty cartridge. A 22, he remarked. That's odd. It must have been a fairly large animal, too. The hunter had his nerve with him to tackle with such a light gun. It's clear that the brute put up a fight. I suppose the first 3 shots I heard was when the hunter fleshed his quarry and wounded it. The last shot was when he trailed it here and finished it. He examined the ground closely and found what he had hoped to find, a path of hunting boots. They pointed along the cliff in the direction he had been going. Eagerly he hurried along, now slipping on a rotten log or loose stone, but making headway. Night was beginning to settle down on the island. Bleak darkness was blacking out the sea and the jungle when Rainsford saw the lights. He came upon them as he turned a crook in the coastline, and his first thought was that B had come. Oh, that he. Okay, it was just spelled wrong. Okay, first thought was that he had come upon a village, for there were many lights. But as he forged along, he saw, to his great astonishment, that all the lights came from one enormous building, a lofty structure with pointed towers, plunging upwards into the gloom. His eyes made out the shadowy outlines of a hold on, we're Googling that. Oh, come on, Google. Give me the translate. Give me the words. Chaton? I'm pretty sure it's a chaton. Oh, also my spooky noises are over. Let's bring those back up again. His eyes made out the shadowy outlines of a chaton. It was set on a high bluff, and on 3 sides of its cliffs dived down to where the sea licked greedy lips in the shadows. Mirage, thought Rainsford. But it was no mirage, he found, when he opened the tall, spiked iron gate. The stone steps were real enough. The massive door with a leering gargoyle with a knocker was real enough. Yet above it all hung an air of unreality. He lifted the knocker, and it creaked up stiffly, as if it had never been before been used. He let it fall, and it startled him with its booming loudness. He thought he heard steps within. The door remained closed. Again, Rainsford lifted the heavy knocker and let it fall. The door opened then, opened as suddenly as if it was on a spring, and Rainsford stood blinking in the river of gleaming gold light that poured out. The first thing Rainsford's eyes discerned was the largest man Rainsford had ever seen. A gigantic creature, solidly made and black-bearded to the waist. In his hand, the man held a long-barreled revolver. It was pointing straight at Rainsford's heart. Out of the snarl of the beard, out of the snarl of the beard, 2 small eyes regarded Rainsford. "Don't be alarmed," said Rainsford with a smile, which he hoped was disarming. "I'm no robber. I fell off a yacht. My name is Sanger Rainsfield of New York City." The menacing look in the eyes did not change. The revolver pointing as rigidly as if the giant were a statue.
He made no sign that he understood Rainsford's words, or that he even heard them. He was dressed in uniform, a black uniform trimmed with gray Astrakhan? Hope I'm saying that kind of correctly. I'm Sander Rainsford of New York, Rainsford began again. I fell off a yacht. I am hungry. The man's only answer was the raise of his thumb to the hammer of the revolver. Then Rainsford saw the man's free hand go for his forehead in a military salute, and he saw him click his heels together and stand at attention. Another man was coming down the broad marble steps, an erect, slender man in evening clothing. He advanced to Rainsford and held out his hand. In a cultivated voice, marked by a slight accent that gave it added precision and deliberation, he said, "It is a very great pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Sander Rainsford, a celebrated hunter, to my home." Automatically, Rainsford shook the man's hand. "I've read your book about hunting snow lions into Tibet, you see," explained the man. "I am General Zaroff." Rainsford's first impression was that the man was singularly handsome. The second was there was an ordinary, almost bizarre quality, almost bizarre quality about the general's face. He was a tall man past middle age, for his hair was a vivid white, but his thick eyebrows, pointed military mustache was as black as the night from which Rainsford had come. His eyes, too, were black and very bright. He had high cheekbones, a sharp-cut nose, a spare, dark face, the face of a man used to giving orders, the face of an aristocrat. Turning to the giant in uniform, the general made a sign. The giant put his pistol away, saluted, and withdrew. "Ivan is an incredibly strong fellow," remarked the general, "but he has the misfortune to be deaf and dumb. A simple fellow, but, I'm afraid, like all of his race, a bit of a savage." "Is he a Russian?" "He is a Cossack? I think it's Cossack, right? Yeah. He is a Cossack," the general said. His smile showed red lips and pointed teeth. "So am I." "Come," he said. "We shouldn't be chatting here. We can talk later. Now you want clothes, food, and rest. You shall have them. This is a very restful spot." Ivan had reappeared, and the general spoke to him with lips that moved, but gave forth no sound. "Follow Ivan, if you please, Mr. Rainsford," said the general. "I was about to have my dinner when you came. I'll wait for you. You'll find that my clothes will fit you, I think." It was a huge, beam-ceilinged bedroom with a canopied bed big enough for 6 men that Rainsford followed the silent giant. Ivan laid out an evening suit, and Rainsford, as he put it on, noticed that it came from a London tailor who originally cut and sewed for none below the rank of duke. Oh yeah, we gotta flaunt our who knows who, obviously. The dining room to which Ivan conducted him was in many ways remarkable. There was a medieval magnificence about it. It suggested a baronial hall of feudal times with oaken panels, a high ceiling, its vast refectory, its vast refectory tables where 2 men could sit down to eat. About the hall were mounted heads of many animals: lions, tigers, elephants, moose, bears. Larger and more perfect specimens Rainsford had never seen. At the great table sat the general, waiting. At the great table, the great general sat, alone. "You'll have a cocktail, Mr. Rainford," he suggested. The cocktail was surpassingly good. And Rainford noted the table appointments were of the finest: the linen, the crystal, the silver, the china. They were eating broche, the rich red soup with whipped cream so dear to the Russian palates. Half apologetically, General Zoroff said, "We do our best to preserve the amenities of civilization here. Please forgive any lapses. We are well off the beaten track, you know. Do you think the champagne has suffered from its long trip?" "Not at all," declared Rainsford. He was finding the general a most thoughtful and affable host, a true cosmopolite. But there was a small trait of the general that made Rainsford uncomfortable. Whenever he looked up from his plate, he found the general studying him, appraising him narrowly. Perhaps, said General Zoroff. "You were surprised that I recognized your name. You see, I read all the books about hunting published in English, French, and Russian. I have but one passion in my life, Mr. Rainsford, and it is to hunt." "You have some wonderful heads here," said Rainsford as he ate a particularly well-cooked filet mignon. "That Cape buffalo is the largest I've ever seen. That Cape buffalo is the largest I ever saw. Oh, that fellow. Yes, he was a monster." "Did he charge you?" "Hurled me against the trees," said the general. "Fractured my skull, but I got the brute." "I always thought," said Rainford, "that the Cape buffalo was the most dangerous of all game." For a moment the general did not reply. He was smiling his curious red-lipped smile. Then he said slowly, "No, you're wrong, sir. The Cape buffalo is not the most dangerous game." He sipped his wine. "Here in my preserve on this island," he said in the same slow tone, "I hunt more dangerous game." Rainsford expressed his surprise. "Is there a big game on this island?" The general nodded. "The biggest." "Really?" "Well, it isn't here naturally, of course. I have stalked the island." "What have you imported, General?" Rainsford asked. "Tigers?" The general smiled. "No," he said. "Hunting tigers ceased to interest me some years ago. I exhausted their possibilities, you see. No thrill left in tigers. No real danger. I live for danger, Mr. Rainsford." The general took from his pocket a gold cigar case and offered his guest a cigarette case and offered his guest a long black cigarette with a silver tip. It was perfumed and gave off a smell like incense. "We will have capital hunting, you and I," said the general. "I shall be glad to have your society." "But what game?" began Rainsford. "I'll tell you," said the general. "You will be amused, I know. I think I may say, in all honesty, that I have done a rare thing. I have invented a new sensation." "May I pour you another glass of port?" "Thank you, General." The general poured both another glass and said, "God's made some men poets. Some he makes kings, some beggars. Me he makes a hunter. My hand was made for the trigger, my father said. He was a rich man with 250,000 acres in Syria, or in Crimea, Crimea. With 1,000,000 acres in Crimea. He was an ardent sportsman. When I was 5 years old, he gave me a small gun, specifically made in Moscow for me, to shoot sparrows with. When I shot some of his prize turkeys with it, he did not punish me. He complimented me on my marksmanship. I killed my first bear in Caucasus when I was 10. My whole life has been one prolonged hunt. I went into the army. I was as expected of noblemen's sons, and for a time commanded a division of Cossack cavalry, but my real interest always was the hunt. I have hunted many types of game in every land. It will be impossible for me to tell you how many animals I've killed. And hello, not the big boss. How are you? The general puffed at his cigarette. After the debacle in Russia, I left my country, for it was imprudent for an officer of the Tsar to stay there. Many noble Russians lost everything. I, luckily, had invested heavily in American securities, so I shall never have to open a tea room in Monte Cristo or drive a taxi in Paris. Naturally, I continued to hunt grizzlies in the Rockies, crocodiles in the Gadans, rhinoceroses in East Africa. It was in Africa that the Cape buffalo hit me and laid me up for 6 months. As soon as I recovered, I started for the Amazon to hunt jaguars, for I had heard they were unusually cunning. They weren't. The Cossack sighed. They were no match at all for a hunter with his wits about him, and a high-powered rifle. I was bitterly disappointed. I was laying in my tent with a splitting headache one night when a terrible thought pushed its way into my mind. Hunting was beginning to bore me, and hunting, remember, had been my life. I had heard that in America businessmen often go to pieces when they give up the business that has been their life. Yes, that's so, said Rainsford. The general smiled. I had no wish to go to pieces, he said. I must do something. Now, mine is an analytical mind, Mr. Rainsford. Doubtless that it is why I enjoy the problems of the chase. No doubt, General Zaroff. So, continued the general, I asked myself why the hunt no longer fascinated me. You are much younger than I, Mr. Rainsford, and have not hunted as much, but perhaps you can guess the answer. What was that? Simply this. Hunting has ceased to be what you call a sporting proposition. It has become too easy. I always get my quarry. Always. There is no greater bore than perfection. The general lit a fresh cigarette. No animal has a chance with me now. That is no boast. It is mathematical certainty. The animal has nothing but their legs and his instinct. Instinct is no match for reason. When I thought of this, it was a tragic moment for me, I can tell you. Rainsford leaned across the table, absorbed in what his host was saying. It came to me as an inspiration what I must do, the general went on. And what was that? The general smiled, a quiet smile of one who has faced an obstacle and surmounted it with success. I have invented a new animal to hunt, he said. A new animal? You're joking. Not at all, said the general. I never joke about hunting. I need a new animal. I found one. So I bought this island, built this house, and here I do my hunting. The island is perfect for my purposes. There are jungles with a maze of trails in them, hills, swamps. But the animal general, Zaroff. Oh, said the general. It supplies me with the most exciting hunting in the world. No other hunting compares with it for an instant. Every day I hunt, and I never grow bored now, for I have a quarry with which I can match my wits. Rainsford's bewilderment showed on his face. I wanted the ideal animal to hunt, explained the general. So I said, what are the attributes of an ideal quarry? And the answer was, of course, it must be curious, cunning, and above all else, it must be able to reason. But there's no animal that can reason, objected Rainsford. My dear fellow, said the general, there is one that can. But you can't mean, gasped Rainsford. And why not? I can't believe you're serious, General Zaroff. This is some grisly joke. Why should I not be serious? I'm speaking of hunting. Hunting? General Guns, General Zaroff. What you're speaking of is murder. The general laughed with an entire good nature. He regarded Rainsford quizzically. I refuse to believe that so modern and civilized a man as you cease to harbor the romantic idea of the value of human life. Surely you experienced in war. That did not make me condone cold-blooded murder, finished Rainsford stiffly. Laughter shook the general. How extraordinary droll of you are, he said. No, one does not expect nowadays to find a young man of the educated class, even in America, with such a naive, and if I must say so, mid-Victorian point of view. It's all finding a sniff box. It's like finding a sniff box in a limousine. Well, doubtless you had... doubtless you had Puritan ancestors. So many Americans appear to have had. I'll wager you forgot your notions when you go hunting with me. You've a genuine new thrill in store for you, Mr. Rainsford. Thank you. I'm a hunter, not a murderer. Dear me, said the general, rather unruffled. Again that unpleasant word. But I think I can show you that your scruples are quite ill-founded. Yes. Life is for the strong, to be lived by the strong, and, if need be, to be taken by the strong. The weak of the world may be put there to give the strong pleasure. I am strong. Why should I not use my gift? If I wish to hunt, why should I not? I hunt the scum of the earth, sailors from the tarp sails, lessers, blacks, Chinese, whites, mongrels. A thoroughbred horse or a hound is worth more than a score of them. Jesus Christ. That is Will talking right now. But they are men, said Rainsford hotly. Precisely, said the general. That is why I use them. It gives me pleasure. They can reason, after a fashion. So they are dangerous. But where do you get them? The general's left eyelid fluttered down in a wink. The general is so campy. Yeah, he's just straight evil. Like, he's just evil. I lost my... This, with a fluttered down with a wink. This island is called Shiptrap, he answered. Sometimes an angry god of the high seas sends them to me. Sometimes... When Providence is not so kind, I help Providence a bit. Come to the window with me. Rainsford came to the window and looked out to the sea. Watch! Out there! He exclaimed, the general, pointing into the night. Rainsford eyed only blackness, and then, as the general pushed a button, far out to sea, Rainsford saw the flashes of lights. The general chuckled. They indicate a channel, he said, where there's none. Great rocks with razor edges crouch like a sea monster with wide open jaws. They can crash a ship so easily as I crush this nut. He dropped a walnut on the hardwood floor and brought his heel grinding down on it. Oh yes, he said casually, as if to answer a question. I have electricity. We try to be civilized here. Civilized! And you shoot down men. A trace of anger was in the general's black eyes, but it was there for only a second, and he said, in his most pleasant manner, Dear me, what a righteous young man you are. I assure you that I do not do a thing you suggest. That would be barbarous. I treat these visitors with every consideration. They get plenty of food and exercise. They get into splendid physical condition. You shall see for yourself tomorrow. What do you mean? We'll visit my training school, smiled the general. It's in the cellar. I have a dozen pupils down there now. They're from a Spanish bark. They're from the Spanish bark San Lucar that had the bad luck of going on the rocks out there. A very inferior lot, I reckon to say. Poor specimens and more accommodated to deck than to the jungle. He raised his hand, and Ivan, who served as a waiter, brought thick Turkish coffee. Rainsford, with an effort, held his tongue in check. It's a game, you see, pursued the general blandly. I suggest to one of them that we go hunting. I give them a supply of food, an excellent hunting knife. I give him a 3-hour head start. I am to follow, armed only with a pistol of the smallest caliber and range. If my quarry eludes me for 3 whole days, he wins the game. If I find him, the general smiled, he loses. Suppose he refuses to hunt? Oh, said the general, I give him his option, of course. He need not play the game if he does not wish to. But if he does not wish to hunt, I turn him over to Ivan. Ivan has the honor of once had the honor of serving as the official... That's a word that I need to look up. Oh, is it Nodder? Or Nauder? I hate my dyslexia so much. Served as the official Nauder for the Great White Tsar, and he had his own ideas of sport. Invariably, Mr. Rainsford, invariably, they choose the hunt. And if they win? The smile on the general's face widened. To date, I have not lost, he said, and then he added hastily, I do not wish you to think me a braggart, Mr. Rainsford. Many of them afford only the most elementary sort of problem. Occasionally, I strike a tartar. One almost did win. I eventually had to use the dogs. The dogs. This way, please. I'll show you. Wow, I love that this guy is like, yeah, I give them so many advantages. And I only use a small caliber pistol. Until they almost win. And then I use the dogs. Like, you're just adding to the rules as you go, huh? The general steered Rainsford to a window. The lights from the window... Wait, hold on. Yeah, the general steered... Wait, am I... Okay, no, I'm at the right spot. The lights from the window sent a flickering illumination that made grotesque patterns in the courtyard below. And Rainsford could see moving about as a dozen or so huge black shapes as they turned towards him, their eyes glittering greenly. A rather good lot, I think, observed the general. They are let out at 7 every night. If anyone tries to get into my house or out, something extremely regrettable would occur to him. He hummed a scratch of song from the... I'm just gonna go, he hummed a scratch of song. Now, said the general, I want to show you my new collections of heads. Will you come with me to the library? I hope, said Rainsford, that you will excuse me tonight, General Zaroff. I'm really not feeling well. Ah, indeed, said the general. The general inquired. Solicitously? Dyslexia! And of course, for some reason, Google just is not doing the pronunciation thing. Hold on.
Solicitously.
Solicitously. The general inquired solicitously. Well, I suppose that it's only natural after your long swim. You need a good, restful night's sleep. Tomorrow you will feel like a new man, I'll wager. Then we'll hunt, eh? I've one rather promising prospect. Rainsford was hurried from the room. Sorry, you can't go with me tonight, called the general. I expect a rather fair sport. Big, strong, black. He looks resourceful. Well, good night, Mr. Rainsford. I hope you have a good night's rest. The bed was good, and the pajamas of the softest silk. He was tired in every fabric of his being, but nevertheless, Rainsford could not quiet his brain with the opiate of sleep. He lay, eyes wide open. Once he thought he heard stealthy steps in the corridor outside his room. He sought to throw open the door. It did not open. He went to the window and looked out. His room was high in one of the towers. The lights of the Chateau. And then I lost my place. The lights of the chateau were out now, and it was dark and silent, but there were fragments of shallow moon, and by its wan light he could see dimly in the courtyard. There, waning in and out in the patterns of the shadow, were black, noiseless forms. The hounds heard him at the window and looked up, expectantly, with their green eyes. Rainsford went back to bed and lay down. By many methods he tried to put himself to sleep. He had accomplished a doze when, as the morning began to come, he heard, off in the jungle, the faint report of a pistol. General Saraf did not appear until luncheon. He was dressed flawlessly in tweeds of a country squire. He was solicitously. We just had this word. Will. How?
Solicitous.
Solicitous. He was solicitous about the state of Rainsford's health. As for me, sighed the general, I do not feel so well. I'm worried, Mr. Rainsford. Last night I detected traces of my old complaint. To Rain's questioning glance, the general said, ennui, boredom. Then, taking a second helping of crepes, the general explained, the hunt was not good last night. The fellow lost his head. He made a straight trail that offered no problem at all. That's the trouble with these sailors. They have dull brains to begin with, and they don't know how to get around in the woods. They do expressively stupid and obvious things. It's most annoying. Will you have another glass of Charbet? No, of Chabais? They don't have their land legs yet. I hope that came across. Will you have another I'm just going to say Charbet for just no reason. Will you have another glass of Charbet, Mr. Rainsford? General, said Rainsford firmly, I wish to leave this island at once. The general rose, his thicken of eyebrows. He seemed hurt. But my dear fellow, the general protested, you've only just come. You have had no hunting. I wish to go today, said Rainsford. He saw the dead black eyes of the general on him, studying him. The General Saraf's face suddenly brightened. He filled Rainsford's glass with venerable Chardonnay from a dusty bottle. Tonight, said the general, we will hunt, you and I. Rainsford shook his head. No, General, he said. I will not hunt. I have this crazy suspicion that because he just said he's not hunting, that means he's being hunted. The general shrugged his shoulders and deliberately ate a hothouse grape. As you wish, my friend, he said. The choice rests entirely upon you. But I may not venture to guess that you will find my idea of sport more diverting than Ivan's. But may I not venture to suggest that you will find my idea of sport more diverting than Ivan's? He nodded towards the corner where the giant stood, scowling, his thick arms crossed over his hogshead of a chest. You don't mean, cried Rainsford. My dear fellow, said the general, had I not told you, I always mean what I say about hunting. This is really an inspiration. I drank with a foeman worthy of my steel, at least. Or at last, the general rose his glass. But Rainsford sat staring at him. You'll find this game worth playing, the general said enthusiastically. Your brain against mine, your woodcraft against mine, your strength and stamina against mine. Outdoor chess. And the stakes are not without value, eh? And if I win, began Rainsford huskily, I'll cheerily acknowledge myself defeat if I do not find you by the midnight of the third day, said General Saraf. My sloop will place you on the mainland near a town. The general read what Rainsford was thinking. Oh, you can trust me, said the Cossack. I will give you my word as a gentleman and a sportsman. Of course, you, in turn, must agree to say nothing of your visit here. I'll agree to nothing of the kind, said Rainsford. Oh, said the general. In that case, but why discuss it now? 3 days hence we shall discuss it over a bottle of... I still can't believe this guy is being so... Rainsford is not cunning, you know? It's literally just like, just say yes. He's not gonna let you go. We will discuss it over a bottle of wine, unless... The general sipped his wine. Then a businesslike air animated him. Ivan, he said to Rainsford, will supply you with hunting clothes, food, and a knife. I suggest you wear moccasins. They leave a poorer trail. I suggest, too, that you avoid the big swamp in the southeast corner of the island. We call it Death Swamp. There's a quicksand there. One foolish fellow tried it. The deplorable part of it was that Lazarus followed him. You can imagine my feeling, Mr. Rainsford. I loved Lazarus. He was the finest hound in my pack. Well, I must beg you to excuse me. I must take a siesta after lunch. You'll hardly have time to nap, I fear. You'll want to start, no doubt. I shall not follow till dusk. Hunting at night is so much more exciting than the day, don't you think? Au revoir, Mr. Rainsford. Au revoir. General Zaroff, with a deep, courteous bow, strolled from the room. From another door came Ivan. Under one arm, he carried kahaki hunting clothes, a ham sack of a hover sack of food, and a leather sheath containing a long-bladed hunting knife. His right hand rested on a cocked revolver, thrust in the crimson sash from about his waist. Rainsford had fought his way through the bush for 2 hours. I must keep my nerve. I must keep my nerve, he said through tight teeth. Oh, so it is khaki? I didn't realize that khaki had an H in it. The H is what throws me off. Hold on. Also, on a side note, Jam, I'm digging this story so far. I'm very enjoying it. I'm not quite sure where it's going yet, and I'm excited about it. I don't know why I've decided to give General Zaroff the voice that I've given him, but at this point I'm kind of just stuck with it. All right. He had not been entirely clear-headed when the chateau gates snapped closed behind him. His whole idea at first was to put distance between himself and General Zaroff, and to this end, he had plunged ahead, spurred on by the sharp roars of something very like panic. Now he had gotten a grip on himself, had stopped, and was taking stock of himself and the situation. He saw that straight fright was futile. Inevitably, it would bring him face to face with the sea. Or straight flight was futile. Inevitably, it would bring him face to face with the sea. He was in a picture with a frame of water, and his operations clearly must take place within the frame. Oh, I see. That's actually a really good metaphor. Sorry. He was in a picture with a frame of water, and his operations clearly must be taken within the frame. I'll give him a trail to follow, muttered Rainsford, and he struck off from the rude path he had been following into a trackless wilderness. He executed a series of intricate loops, doubling his trail again and again, recalling all the lore of the fox hunt and all the dodges of the fox. Night found his legs weary, with hands and face lashed by branches on a thickly wooden ridge. He knew it would be insane to blunder on through the dark, even if he had the strength. He needed to rest. His need to rest was imperative, and he thought, I have played the fox. Now I must play the cat of the fable. And hello, Spencer. How's it going? A big tree with a thick trunk, outspread branches was nearby, and, taking care to leave not the slightest mark, he climbed onto the crotch, and, spreading out on one of the broad limbs, after a fashion, rested. Rest brought him new confidence, almost a sense of security. Even so zealous a hunter as General Zaroff may not trace him there, he told himself. Only the devil himself would follow that complicated trail through the jungle in the dark. But perhaps the general was a devil. An apprehensive night crawled slowly by like a wounded snake, and sleep did not follow Rainsford. Although the silence of the dead world was on the jungle. Towards morning, when the dingy gray was varnishing the sky, the cry of startled birds focused Rainsford's attention in the distance. Something was coming through the bush, coming slowly, carefully, coming by the same winding way Rainsford had come. He flattened himself down on the limb, and through the screen of leaves almost as thick as the tapestry, he watched. That which was approaching was a man. It was General Zaroff. He made his way along with his eyes fixed in utmost concentration on the ground before him. He paused beneath the tree, dropped to his knees, and studied the ground. Rainsford's impulse was to hurl himself down like a panther, but he saw the general's right hand held something metallic, a small automatic pistol. The hunter shook his head several times as if he were puzzled. Then he straightened up, took from his case one of his black cigarettes. Its pungent, incense-like smoke flowed into Rainsford's nostrils. Rainsford held his breath. The general's eyes had left the ground and were now traveling inch by inch up the tree. Rainsford froze there, every muscle tense. Dang it. Sorry, brain suddenly just skipped ahead. Every muscle tense for a spring. But the sharp eyes of the hunter stopped before they reached the limb where Rainsford was. A smile spread over his brown face. Very deliberately, he blew smoke ring into the air. Then he turned back into the tree, walking carelessly away, back along the trail he had come. The swish of the underbrush against his hunting boots grew fainter and fainter. The pent-up air burst hotly from Rainsford's lungs. His first thought made him sick and numb. The general could follow a trail through the woods at night. he could follow an extremely difficult path. He must have uncanny powers. Only by merely chance had the Cossack failed to see his quarry. We have to remember, too, that General Zarov, has read, like, everything to do with hunting. So, like, Rainsford being like, he remembers the lessons of the fox hunt, and it's like, he's read that. You know, he knows what that is. Rainsford's second thought was even more terrifying. It sent a shudder of cold horror through his whole body. Why had the general smiled? Why had he turned back? Rainsford did not want to believe what his reason told him was true, but the truth was evident as the sun that had by now pushed through the morning mists. The general was playing with him. The general was saving him for another day of sport. The Cossack was a cat. He was the mouse. Then it was that Rainsford knew the full meaning of terror. I will not lose my nerve. I will not. He slid down the tree and struck off again into the woods. His face was set, and he forced the machinery of his mind to function. 300 yards from his hiding place, he stopped where a huge dead tree leaned precariously on a smaller living one. Throwing off his sack of food, Rainsford took his knife from its sheath and began to work with all his energy. The job was finished at last, and he threw himself down under a fallen log 100 feet away. He did not have to wait long. The cat was coming again to play with the mouse. Following the trail with the sureness of a bloodhound came General Zarov. Nothing escaped the searching black eyes. No crushed blades of grass. No bent twig. No mask, no matter how faint, in the moss. So intent was the Cossack on his stalking that he was upon the thing Redford had made before he saw it. His feet touched the protruding bogue? Dang it. Always the frickin' stop because I have to figure out what a word is.
Bow.
Bow. Okay, it's bow. His foot touched the protruding bough that was the trigger. Even as he touched it, the general sensed his danger and leaped back with the agility of an ape. But he was not quick enough. The dead tree, deliberately arranged to rest on the cut living one, crashed down and struck the general with a glancing blow on the shoulder as it fell. But for his alertness, he must have been smashed beneath it. He staggered, but he did not fall, nor did he drop his revolver. He stood there, rubbing his injured shoulder. And Rainsford, with fear once again gripping his heart, heard the general's mocking laugh ring through the jungle. Rainsford! Oh, no, sorry. Rainsford! He said, the general. If you are within a sound of my voice, as I suppose you are, let me congratulate you. Not many men know how to make a Mali man-catcher. Lucky for me, I too have hunted in Malakia? In Malaysia. Dang it! Stupid word. Give me the pronunciation.
Malacca.
Malacca. Okay, there we go. Luckily for me, I too have hunted in Malacca. You are proving interesting, Mr. Rainsford. I'm going now to have my wound dressed. It's only a slight one, but I shall be back. I shall be back. When the general, nursing his bruised shoulder, had gone, Rainsford took flight again. It was a flight now, a desperate, hopeless fight that carried him on for some hours. Dusk came, then darkness. Still he pressed on. The ground grew softer under his moccasins. The vegetation grew ranker, denser. Insects bit him savagely. Now, as he stepped forward, his foot sank into the ooze. He tried to wring it out, but the muck sucked viciously at his foot as if a great leech. With a violent effort, he tore his foot loose. He knew where he was now. A death swamp and its quicksand. Oh, I think I know where this is gonna go, and I'm very excited about it. When they mentioned the death swamp, I'm like, oh, that's a Chekhov's gun right there. Oh, I'm excited. Let's see where this goes. His hand had tight. His hands were tight closed, as if his nerve was something tangible that someone in the darkness was trying to rip from his grasp. The softness of the earth had given him an idea. He stepped back from the quicksand a dozen feet or so, and, like a huge prehistoric beaver, began to dig. Rainsford had dug himself in France when a second's delay meant death. That had been a placid pastime compared to his digging now. The pit grew deeper. When it was above his shoulders, he climbed out from some heavy saplings, cut stakes, and sharpened them to a fine point. Those stakes he planted at the bottom of the pit, with the points sticking up. With flying fingers, he wove a rough carpet of weeds and branches, and with it he covered the mouth of the pit. And then, wet with sweat and aching with tiredness, he crouched behind a stump of a lightning-charred tree. He knew his pursuer was coming. He knew the padding sound of feet on soft earth. The night breeze brought to him the perfume of the general's cigar. It seemed to Rainsford that the general was coming with unusual swiftness. He was not feeling his way along foot by foot. Rainsford, crouching there, could not see the general, nor could he see the pit. He lived a year in a minute. Then he felt an impulse to cry aloud in joy, for he heard the sharp crack and the breaking branches as the cover of the pit gave way. He heard a sharp scream of pain as the pointed stakes found their mark. He leaped up from his place of concealment, then cowered back. 3 feet from the pit, a man was standing, an electric torch in hand. "You've done well, Rainsford," the voice of the general called. "Your Burmese tiger trap claimed one of my best dogs. Again, you score. I think, Mr. Rainsford, I'll see what I can do against my whole pack. I'm going home to rest now. Thank you for the most amusing evening." Ah, crap, I didn't snooze the ads. Damn it all to heck. Ah, well. I'm just going to keep reading. This will be on YouTube, so no one's going to miss anything. At daybreak, Rainsford lay near the swamp. At daybreak, Rainsford, laying near the swamp, was awoken by the sound that made him have a whole new thing to learn about fear. It was the distant sound. Faint wavering, but he knew it. It was the baying of a pack of hounds. Rainsford knew he could do one of two things. He could stay where he was and wait. That was suicide. He could flee. That was postponing the inevitable. For a moment he stood there, thinking. An idea that held a wild chance came to him, and he tightened his belt. And tightening his belt, he headed away from the swamp. And congratulations for the 3, just a guy. Hold on. Just readjusting. Ooh, we're almost at the end. Ah, we're almost at the end. The baying of the hounds drew nearer, then still nearer, nearer, even nearer. On a ridge, Rainsford climbed a tree. Down a watercourse, not a quarter of a mile away, he could see the bush moving. Straining his eyes, he saw the lean figure of General Zaroff. Just ahead of him, Rainsford made out another figure whose broad shoulders surged through the tall jungle weeds. It was the giant Ivan, he seemed pulled forward by some unseen force. Redfield knew that Ivan must be holding the pack in leash. He would be on him any minute now. His mind worked frantically. He thought of the native trick he had learned in Uganda. He slipped down the tree. He caught hold of a springy young sapling, and to it he fashioned his hunting knife, with the blade pointing down the trail. With a bit of wild grapevine, he tied back the sapling. Then he ran for his life. The hounds raised their voice as they hit the fresh scent. Rainsfield knew now how an animal at bay feels. He had to stop to get his breath. The baying of the dogs stopped abruptly. Rainsfield's heart stopped. They must have reached the knife. He shinned excitedly up the tree and looked back. His pursuers had stopped. But the hope that was in Rainsford's brain... but the hope that was in Rainsford's brain when he climbed up died, as he saw in the shallow valley that General Zaroff was still on his feet. But Ivan was not. The knife, driven by the recoil of the springing... Oh, goddamn, reading too much. Okay. The knife, driven by the recoil of the springing tree, had not wholly failed. Rainsford had hardly tumbled to the ground when the pack took up crying again. Nerve, nerve, he panted as he dashed ahead. Oh, no, freaking Rainsford is saying that. Nerve, he panted as he dashed ahead. The blue gap showed between the trees dead ahead. Even nearer drew the hounds. Rainsford forced himself on towards the gap. He reached it. It was the shore of the sea. Across the cove, he could see the gleaming gray stone of the chateau. 20 feet below him, the sea rumbled and hissed. Rainsford hesitated. He heard the hounds. Then he leapt far out into the ocean. When the general and his pack reached the place by the sea, the Cossack stopped. For a few minutes, he stood regarding the blue-green expanse of water. He shrugged his shoulders. Then he sat down, took a drink of brandy from a silver flask, lit a cigarette, and hummed a bit from Melody Butterfly. No. Madeline. Madame. It has to be Madame Butterfly. Madame Butterfly. That's probably it. Yeah, Madame Butterfly. General Zaroff had an exceedingly good dinner in his good paneled dining room that night. With it, he had a bottle of Pol Roger and a half a bottle of Chambertin. Two slight annoyances kept him from perfect entertainment. One was the thought that it would be difficult to replace Ivan. The other was that his quarry had escaped him. Of course, the American hadn't played the game, As though the general had tasted his after... As thought the general after he tasted his after-dinner liqueur. In his library, he read to soothe himself from the works of Marcus Aurelius. At 10, he went to bed. He was deliciously tired, he said to himself, as he locked himself in. There was a little moonlight, so before turning on his light, he went to the window, looked out to the courtyard. He could see the great hounds, and he called better luck next time to them, then switched his light on. A man who had been hiding in the curtains of the bed was standing there. "Rainsford!" shouted the general. "How in God's name did you get here? How in God's name did you get here?" "Swam," said Rainsford. "I found it quicker than walking through the jungle." The general sucked in his breath and smiled. "I congratulate you," he said. "You have won the game." Rainsford did not smile. "I am still a beast at bay," he said in a low, hoarse voice. "Get ready, General Zaroff." The general made one of his deepest bows. "I see," he said. "Splendid. One of us is to furnish a riposte for the hounds. The other will sleep in this excellent bed. On guard, Rainford." He had never slept in a better bed, Rainsford decided. And that was The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. That was really good. Thank you for introducing me to it, Jam Jam. I thought he was going to get General Zaroff into the death swamps and like get himself caught in one of the quicksands. That was what I was thinking might happen. I did suspect the knife was going to take out Ivan, because that made the most sense. It was like, well, this trap is pretty dangerous, but we can't have the big bad die, so we have to have the bigger bad die. But no, that was good. I liked that. That was a good story. I am no longer capable of reading anymore, because by the end, my brain was literally just moving to different parts of the story, like my eyes would just drift randomly. But I enjoyed the heck out of it. Can you guys hear the sound of a screaming child? My God. But also, let me do this quickly, because I can do that now.
Thank you, Yum Yum.
Well, there you go, Jam Jam. You get Yum Yum. Jam Jam is Yum Yum. All right. I think that is where we are going to end for the night, because I did a frick ton of reading and I am tired, as the people say. They do say that, and anybody who says otherwise is lying. Alright. Yeah, we're gonna raid Erewhon. Hold on. I need to do something really important right now. Oh, ads though. One moment. I have to test something. I need to make sure. I need to be like, hey, got a question for you. Nuggy, you have done the same joke 3 times and I haven't responded to it the first 2 times. I was hoping that that would imply that I wasn't going to interact with it, but I guess I'm going to have to say it out loud. Oh, snap. Never mind. We're going to Erewhon regardless because it's her happy affiliate anniversary. Never mind. We're going to Erewhon. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, thank you so much for being here, for enjoying the stories. Just a second thank you, or a third, a fourth thank you to Jam Jam for the second story, because that was really good. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm going to have to go and edit that later. I'll probably do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll probably do it tomorrow. Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. All right, everybody. We are going to head over to Erwan. She is currently playing The Beast Inside, which means we are going to go ahead and support her with such scary things. If you are subscribed, please use the top rate message. If you are not subscribed, please use the bottom rate message. All right, everybody, we're going to do a quick outro, and then we are done for the night because, my goodness, I am tired. 3 hours is not enough. But all right, everybody, thank you so much for sticking around. Whether you were chatting, whether you were lurking, whether you just popped in and out for a second, know that you were super appreciated. Hope you guys are having a great day, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time it happened to be for you. Hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. I hope that you're drinking plenty of water. And when you finally do sleep, whatever time it happened to be for you, hope that you have a very restful sleep. And laters to you, Spencer. Thank you for stopping by. I always appreciate having you here. And thank you, by the way, for the footage that you posted in the Discord. Always appreciate getting to see the wildness of Alberta. Very much appreciated. All right, everybody, I will catch you guys hopefully tomorrow for technically Choice Tuesdays, but I forgot because I'm a silly boy, so we're probably just going to do Prayer of the Gods tomorrow, or we'll let you guys decide at stream, but I'm going to go. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.